and not that this class is gonna be good, writing, but like this class is gonna skate right on the edge of being barfy enough to make you want to vomit in your mouth and possibly insightful, right? Um, so here's another so that was Beautiful Day by U2. And it's a song you should all kind of have in your repertoire when you're just like forgetting stuff about like that life doesn't actually suck and stuff, stuff like that. Like it's like we got a new song for Laura Halsey. It's always raining in Ireland, right?
It's not
So,
raining this week. It's very exciting.
well, whatever, say whatever you want, say whatever you will, right? But so that's a good one. The heart is a bloom. And then, I've been writing and I'm on hopefully the final stretch of this book and I've been just noticing good little pieces of writing all over the place. And so does anyone know to continue the thread? This is a complete segue from what I want to try to share today, but it's not. It's kind of about the heart is a bloom. Remember a couple weeks ago I was talking about a revolution in a whisper and trying to say, occupying the space in your body, regardless of your ability to do with your body, is actually a revolution, right? But in another song that's even more famous by Tracy Chapman, there's this little line that's such efficient, beautiful, smart writing. And you'll all know the song, right? But me, myself, I got nothing to prove. Does anyone know what song that is off of? By
Yeah.
Tracy Chapman?
Oscars.
Yeah, right. And if you think about it, the song's about she wants to move to the city. It's about generational choices and all this stuff, but she's wanting to move and drive across the border and start a new life with a guy that turns out to be a bad or partner that turns out to be a bad partner or whatever. But but she just says, me, myself, I got nothing to prove. Me, myself, and I, yeah, that's kind of like one of those sad, wonderful things. Hey, me, myself, and I are going to go to take myself to the park, let's say, or whatever. Right? But she makes it me, myself, and then starts the next sentence. I got nothing to prove. So she wants to go to a new life, but she's not going there because she's got something to prove. She just wants a better life, right? So it's great writing. It's super efficient, doing a phrase that we already know, me, myself, and I, and then making it work really efficiently. So back to the other, right? So the thing about there are a couple of lines I wanna share. I was thinking about it this morning. Here's things about hearts, right? I'm kind of curious. Like, think for a second when we hear a lot in our culture, like, well, lead with your heart or follow your heart. And we've got all these phrases around the heart, right? And I'm wondering, and you can pitch in if you want, if you got a conception of it, but like when you say follow your heart or whatever, lead with your heart or all those things, excuse me, um, what part of you do you associate with that? Right? Like, well, what part of your consciousness, right? And I think a lot of people think kind of by default think about, and there's nothing wrong with this. There's no wrong way to think about any of this. The thing about it kind of is their emotions often, it's where you feel things more. There's nothing wrong with that description. It's just like how many other connotations do you have? Fast stop, Rumi. It's one of another little guy's not a crappy poet, by the way. Rumi's got some things that haunt me all the way through, all the time, because of how the way he puts things. It's like there's a great line by David White about Rilke. He's always been there before me. No matter what thought David White's ever had, he finds that Rilke's already been there. And he tries to take solace in it, like, oh my God, at least someone else has already been here. for me, it's like Rumi. Like any thought I have that I think is kind of cool, all of a sudden I come across, and I don't study Rumi because he's such a pervasive voice in my head because he's been there. He said it beautifully. It's just unbelievable what Rumi's done, right? But here's a funny story. You know how I always hear things wrong. I don't know if you know that, but me, my whole life, I don't hear the ends of words and I get things wrong. And like we all do that with song lyrics, but I do it with like tons of stuff. Like I literally think I have an auditory problem, right? But the line is, this is what I thought the line is, was for a long time by Rumi. The heart has 100,000 ways to sleep. Okay. Now, just getting to the good writing part, isn't it? Can't you tell how great it is that it's not just 1,000 ways, it's 100,000 ways, right? That the difference between saying 1,000 ways and 100,000 ways is it's the difference of the whole beauty of the line, right? So, but that's not actually the line. See, when I came across the line the first time, the heart has 100,000 ways to sleep. I was at a point in my thinking about how come our culture, it does seem like we stay asleep and we keep having our eyes shut to what's happening. I don't just mean human suffering. I mean to a lot of things. So I heard the heart has 100,000 ways to sleep. Like, how do you avoid what's going on in our culture, right? One of the ways we avoid what's going on in our culture is we get just all mad at it, right? Or we think it's all screwed up, or that's one of the ways we go to sleep is to be outraged, right? There's a whole bunch of ways. The heart has 100,000 ways to sleep, right? But you know what the line is? And I found this out only like 5 years ago after living with this line. The line is the heart has 100,000 ways to speak, right? Not sleep. Keep thinking there. So I ask you again, how do you think about what you call your heart? Right? Because there's 100,000 ways that it's either going to sleep or it's going to speak. There's a line that I really liked that I wrote in the afterword of waking, which was and part of me, this thing about it having 100,000 ways to speak, right? I wrote, and I believe this on one level still. Um, Hearts don't break, but minds do. So I thought this was a pretty good line, and I think about it, it's not completely true until I had one of my really good friends who was one of the pioneering um people for mind body solutions. She's a former, well, I shouldn't say who it is, but like her son had died by suicide. He had been one of the ones that had taken an antidepressant, and they weren't about suicidal ideation. He was 16, went on antidepressants and took his own life, right? And she read that line and she came to me and she said, I don't think this is true. I'm pretty sure my heart's broken, right? Which, as a parent, good God, right? The heart has 100,000 ways to speak. So it is the case that in the afterword of waking, I thought about reading it to you, but I try to say that no, the heart has an incredible capacity for loss and love. Like to associate the heart with just love or emotion is actually to misrepresent the depth and intensity of the heart, right? The heart is actually knows loss as much as it knows love and transcendently is able to combine both. So when I was trying to say the heart doesn't break, the mind does. It's the mind's relationship to the loss that the heart already has the capacity to sustain through. right? Human beings are much more resilient than we give her, especially lately with in the last 10, 15 years, all the trauma and microaggressions and stuff. Those are all things that the mind's trying to process. But the heart, if you look at human history, we have an incredible capacity to be resilient. And it's not coming from the mind. It's coming from a different part of consciousness. We tend to think of resiliency as willfulness. No, that's crap. The heart has 100,000 ways to speak. All right, so there's a couple different connotations, and then you start studying something like yoga, and maybe you're like me and are beginning to wonder about different parts of consciousness being mapped to different parts of the spine, right? And you think, what? And then I remember a yoga teacher, a senior anger yoga teacher, flippantly said something like, it's a funny story. It's one of the biggest yoga adjustments I've ever gotten, but it's a whole story. But like he just said, oh yeah, the seat of consciousness is to the right of the heart. What? So if you go to the heart, if you think the heart's here, you go to this space right in the center of the sternum. And so somewhere in this part of the spine, kind of said it like it's no big deal. Like the yogis, maybe, and who knows? I'm just reporting what was said, an utterance that was said in my presence that has made me think about it since like when I heard it in like 2004, right? Right in here. So what's right here? So I've been investigating that for a long time. And it's part of why I say, a lifted chest is in every yoga pose. Why is that? Like what? What's this part of the spine? What's it relative to this part of the spine, which is the mouth? What is it relative to the base of the spine? What are the places in between? So start to feel more rather than less. So we're kind of exploring this idea, whatever your connotations are, of what you associate with with what you're calling heart. And I'm just wanting to reiterate Rumi's wisdom that whatever your associations are with your heart, it has 100,000 ways to speak. And you likely only have a couple of default patterns on how you associate it. And I think we should trust the beauty of Rumi's thoughts, right? Like his articulation. So sit up straight and tall. Why would we want base? Why were the yogis likely sitting on the ground when they started to realize the bandhas and their awakening spine, right? So, what is it about feeling base underneath your spine? So, your sitting bones and your feet. And how might more connection to the earth help the heart wake up, right? Why would in centering, as we're feeling the structure and the base, so we can feel the space between the structure, right? You got the sitting, but you're looking for this space in between where minds tend to be pretty scared to go, right? Minds kind of don't like sitting in what they can't quite make tangible. I ask you to soften the inside of your mouth and your jaw, the skin on your forehead. But as you do that, keep the structure, right? Keep more. Start to add some direction. Start to hit down and rise up through the spine. Broaden, as you know, I really like the instruction broaden between the shoulder blades. But at the same time, like the instruction I heard Laura Blakeney say, let your upper thoracic migrate forward. So you're not just lifting your chest, you're letting it migrate forward. all the while keeping the organs of perception for your brain quiet, soft. You're letting the spine start to speak. So as the lungs inflate, you can notice it does something to the center of your chest. I hope you've started to explore the way it's possible to have your exhalation extend your spine. 100,000 ways to speak. 100,000 ways to sleep. Good. And then release. Bring even more attention to your spine. Lift the sternum, drop the chin. Feel the rib cage. Notice the breath, each nostril, each lung, each sitting bone, each foot. What is this space, he puts in air quotes, that we refer to as the heart? What part of you is that? Are you sure it's vulnerable? Or is it transcendent? Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. You know what's a remarkable way for the heart to sleep? Fear. Fear. Look what it's doing to this country. Fear, right? Let's start to move around. All these ways to speak, all these ways to sleep, right? Ooh, ooh, did I just discover a knot right there? Right there when I move my neck around a little bit. Yeah, so I got this pain there, so I'm gonna make sure that my mind's interpretation of the pain doesn't collapse the space in the center of my chest that I tend to associate with my heart. Hmm, interesting. You mean my heart can be impervious to what hurts? Doesn't ignore it. It just doesn't get touched by it, right? It can be simultaneous. Is there anything that your heart can't be simultaneous with? Seriously? Don't undersell your heart, all right? Don't do it. Taking my legs wide because I'm trying to get things open again. Do whatever you do to wake up. What I find is when I wake up my body, it tends to wake up my air quotes heart, right? I don't just stretch to prepare for yoga poses. I actually move to go, dang, right? It's like, dang. I just wonder. I was thinking about it. It doesn't mean you have to go out and do stupid, vulnerable things, but wouldn't you rather have your heart speak than sleep? Holy cow. I know. I'm thinking I would, right? And this comes from a guy who's so much in his head that, but I'm a weepy guy. So got that other thing just ready to go at any time, right? So we're waking up. So how I find it really helpful to rather than get all tied up in when I want to find, I find it's a little bit helpful to use yoga to figure out how to support the center of my chest rather than my heart. And know if I support and inflate the center of my chest, my emotional heart will get better, right? So that's not a bad strategy, but you got to figure out your own strategy. How are you going to wake it up, right? What's scary about leading with your heart? Does it mean your heart and your mind can't be associated with each other? I'm doing a little bit of dog pose because I'm still waking up the stuff. So my hands are on the table. They could be on your legs or whatever, but I'm going to roll, the instructions, right? To press down through the index mound part of your hand, or make sure that the energy is going across your forearm towards the thumb side of your hand, while at the same time lifting the inner upper arm towards the ceiling. In other words, let's bring the muscle to the bone on the arms, right? But this time I'm going to do it in a way that lifts up my heart, lifts up the center of my chest. I'm going to realize that these instructions are to help me extend and open right here, right? And once I start getting those, then I'm going to go, oh, with a raised chest, what am I going to do? I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones, go back towards the moon, roll my inner upper thigh in and down, extend from my inner groin to my inner knee, down to my inner heel. But I'm going to keep transcendently lifting my sternum skyward. Good. And then release. What can I do to get this more open, but open with strength, not just with vulnerability, right? Like, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to try a little bit of this dog pose stuff. Not to open my chest, but to support it. So one of the things that's cool about dog pose is you get reference on your hands and your feet, even though I can't feel my feet, quote, can't feel my feet, your hands and your feet, right? So I want you to get whatever you can and be aware of, having an abdominal spasm, the hands, your hands and your feet aware on the radar of your mind simultaneously. So do whatever you need to do that, right? And then make sure, and that you're going to find that working your arms like dog pose ain't a bad idea, right? And then as you get reference on your hands and feet, find the center of your chest. And as soon as you do, kind of makes me want to hit my sitting bones down. And then rather than stretch out through the top of your head while collapsing your chest, open your chest, hit down through your sitting bones, broaden across the collarbones, extend out through the top of your head, work your arms, spread the soles of your feet. I can't do that, but I'm going to put energy there. I'm going to be aware of energy there. I'm not going to put it there. And I'm going to breathe. I'm creating structure around the seat of consciousness, the center of my chest. Good. And then release. Are you sure that this is the most vulnerable part of you? Or is this the vulnerable part? This or this? Ask yourself. I think I'm afraid more up here. I'm less afraid here, right? This part's afraid that this part's going to get hurt. That's different, right? All right, take your arms wide. Get bigger in space. Now make sure you're lifting your sternum, dropping your shoulder blades. And as you do that, hit down through your sitting bones and go down through your feet. Good, and then release. So I've been working, as you know, for a lot of time I've been working on I teach it a lot, trying to get the center of the palm to open up, right? To get it to be more open, right? So instead of trying to stretch my fingers hard, which is what my mind's going to do when it's lazy, I'm going to have to go into the ways my mind, the heart has 100,000 ways to sleep. One of them is when the mind takes over too fast. Like when you tell someone to open their hands, they often do it with their fingers and they work really hard, right? And so to try to find the skin on the center of the palm and then go from the skin on the center of the palm out through the fingers, it's a completely different action, right? Now, I don't know about you, but when I go like this and work my fingers too hard, whether you can move your fingers or not, try to move them, right? My heart space stays closed when I work my fingers too hard. It doesn't open the same. So this time, I want you to see your heart as a bloom that happens on a whole bunch of different levels. As you try to get connected to the place you don't get to control as much. You get to control your fingers. You don't get to control the center of your palm as much. But as you start to open the center of your palm, I want you to simultaneously open the center of your chest. So you combine them. The heart is a bloom that I can feel stuff and make sure they combine with other stuff. So now, rather than do it in the air, I'm going to put my heel and my hands together. Oh, there's the earth. There's the sensitivity of my skin. Now, as I open the center of my palm, I'm going to open the center of my chest. Then I'm going to stretch up through my fingers. So suddenly, my heart's beginning to speak through my body. Good, and then release. No, I'm doing all this because I'm gonna take one arm wide at a time because it's easier on me, right? What I want to do is when I first if I try to overspread my hands or my fingers, right, I'll lock up muscularly and my heart center will drop. I want to like find the center of my palm, open it with the subtlety while lifting my chest, while hitting through my sitting bones, taking the shoulder blade back into the socket as I go beyond my fingertips, but I'm going to go beyond my fingertips from the center of my chest and the center of my palms. Good. And then release. So I'm doing all these extra things. That arm for me gets sore pretty fast. So I'm going to go this way now and I'll be able to do it better because I won't be in as much pain, right? So I'm going to pay attention now to trying to like get it so as my palm opens, right, my center of my chest opens, I take the shoulder blade back. I go beyond my fingertips. And now as I do all that, my chest drops. I can feel it. So I'm going to open it again because it doesn't have to drop. It's because my mind can't pay attention to everything. Good, and then release. Now, the reason why I did one arm at a time is because I'm going to do both arms at a time. And what I want is I want you to, as your arms are both wide, I want you to open the center of your palm, but try to keep the heart connected to the center of the palm as you do it. So inhale, take your arms up. Now, what I want is to get the center of the palm and the heart to speak together, right? To get them both open at the same time. In order to do that, I don't know about you, but I have to hit down through my sitting bones more. I have to go down through my legs more to get the synchronicity between the center of the chest and my palms. Good, and then release, right? So now I'm going to go back to where it's easier, where I'm more on balance. I'm going to go back to now I've got my elbows on the table. I've got conditions of safety better, right? I've got different things going here. And I'm going to find how to feel my sitting bones, feel the space between my palms, lift my chest and bring them all into sync. Combine them with my breath, drop my shoulder blades down, hit down through my sitting bones, extend out through the top of my hands. I'm saying all these things in words, but I hope you're already doing them because you're a yogi, because you've practiced this before. Now add your breath to all the directions. 100,000 ways to speak. Good, and then release. It strikes me, I don't know, I might be just talking crap here. Strikes me that it would be really hard to perpetrate violence if the center of your chest was open, right? That the precondition of being violent rather than non-violent would be a closed chest. Huh. Does everyone agree? Wouldn't it be hard? It's almost like can't even imagine keeping the center of your chest open. Well, like I've never hit anybody really, so but I can't even imagine how that would work. So I'm taking my legs wide because the energies. There's a great song by Lou Reed. Life tastes, life's like bacon and ice cream. That's what life like feels like without you, you know? It's a great song. Or a mayonnaise soda. That's what life's like without you. Singing a love song to someone that's dying of cancer. Right? But to me, that's why I don't know how you keep this open and be mean to people exactly. And I don't even, it's not even emotional. It's like the energies don't go together. So my legs are wide, right? Because I think it's important, at least for me, to get the base of my spine up. Going off to the side, right? I'm streamlining my spine to find my legs, right? Bottom shoulder blades tucking in, right? So instead of letting this roll forward, I'm rolling it under. Why? To support the space in the center of my chest. Why? So I can be more in the world. Why? Because it's better that way. Why would I think this is vulnerable? You sure it's your heart that breaks? Back to center. I'm not sure why this space would be vulnerable. The mind's take on this space might be vulnerable, going the other way, right? I'm making sure. Now, on this side, for my pose, I don't tuck in the shoulder blade under isn't as important because it's already tucked there. This one, it always rolls forward. So here, for me, you got to know your body. Got to make sure I tuck this shoulder blade down. But then I'm making sure as I lean over, I'm streamlining my spine so I can get Tadasana to show me where my legs are, right? And then get my head in line with my pose. I'm going to open the center of my chest, support it with everything else. So the very center of my chest, which I am not fully in control of, just like you can't quite choose who you're going to love, right? I'm going to make sure it's expressing itself or speaking through more of my body. Good, and then release. Moving back and forth a little bit. So back to Tadasana. Isn't it funny? We tend to think about love as having an object, except does it? It surely can. It can have an object, right? Down facing dog again. Making sure my arms know how to support the center of my chest, right? My legs, everything defined to become a vehicle for the space that I don't get to control, but I get to be congruent with the very deep center of my chest. Use an asana to bring that part of my consciousness through my body, even out through my skin. It's a good time to breathe. Good, and then release. I think we limit the heart's language to think about it just as emotions, right? It's a good starting way. All right, so come forward. Upward facing dog. I have to be careful. You do upward facing dog. I gotta watch my abdomen here. So lifting up, drop the shoulder blades down. Good, and then release. So I can't help when I do that pose and I don't use my arms as much. I can't help but think about Monty Python and the Black Knight. Loses his limbs and says it's just a flesh wound, right? And he's got no problem, it's just a flesh wound, right? And so, like when I come forward in upward facing, I like somehow sometimes doing upward facing down, and sometimes yoga poses like I don't have any appendages, right? And I just figure out how to be really strong through my spine. So I'm forward again. My hands are on my thighs. My forearms are on my thighs, right? I'm like this, and I'm rolling my shoulders back. I'm pinning my shoulders back, right? But I'm doing it in a way that actually feeds, instead of just throwing them back like this, I'm bringing them into alignment and bring them in so I feel my sitting bones and my chest lifts. And then release. So I can do it lazy. I can do it from the outside, or I can move my body as if everything is aiming to support the seat of consciousness. So I'm going to roll my shoulder blades in, drop them down, hit down through my sitting bones, extend up, and then start to think about, man, my arms are actually just add-ons. Breathe. Good. And then release. I'm glad for them. I'm definitely glad I have arms, right? I'm glad I have legs. So I'm going to rock back and forth here a little bit. So then I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to move my odds. I'm moving my whole wheelchair, man. I like that. If you've been in a wheelchair long enough, you start to play weird games, right? So I have tried many times. I like to try to go down all the way down the hallway. I have wood floors without ever touching my wheels, right? Just flinging my spine forward. I'm doing it right now. I can never quite go straight though. So I'm moving my wheelchair forward just by moving my spine, right? I'm not trying to use my arms. You should try stuff like this. Try hopping just with your spine. Like here, I'm trying to come forward just more straight this time, right? So I'm doing all this weird stuff because damn it, I'm the Black Knight. It's just a flesh wound, right? Because why wouldn't you practice shit like this? Like, why wouldn't you just try to be goofy sometimes? Because the heart has 100,000 ways to speak, right? It doesn't all have to be so damn serious, so damn
Hey,
emotional.
Matt, I think you should balance with your on the wheels, but don't push on them and then wedge do your
Totally.
gyration. Oh,
All
hell
these
yeah.
things. Remember, this
Oh,
is
it's
the
so,
very beginning of also me trying to remember I've taught classes on skipping without being able to skip. This is all the same shit, right? Because dang it, I kind of like it, right? I kind of like thinking I'm the Black Knight, right? All right. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve. Take the arm behind you, right? And then how am I going to support the very center of my chest? In my asana knowledge of yoga, What am I going to do before I start twisting, before my mind starts to take over the pose, right? Can I stay in the truth of it long enough to figure out how to bring the place that my mind never gets to control? Can I bring that, lead the pose through that space? When you do that, you'll realize you don't have to twist as much. You're like, oh, didn't have to be so dramatic. Good, and then release. Come back to center. Gonna go the other way in a second here. And I'm wondering about trusting the things I don't control, so I don't need as much drama to know that I'm working. Right? Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve. Getting on balance, because I know that's going to be one of the best ways to make the center of my chest become part of the pose. And now I'm going to figure out what I need to do in my own pose. Everyone's body's a little different, right? They're a lot the same though. Like, how can I make sure that the center of my chest is actually getting expression through the twist? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. So why would we tell you to lift around the collarbones? Why would I tell you to spread the space between the shoulder blades? Why would I say let that be a corridor down to your legs? Make sure you feel your feet. Why would I say all day? Because the heart has 100,000 ways to speak and 100,000 ways to sleep. Good. So we say about an athlete sometimes, he plays or she plays with heart. The hell does that mean? Right? Dave, I'm going to take that as a thumbs up. I know your screen just did that, but I'm going to take that you meant that line to be a thumbs up, right? He plays, she plays with heart. What does that mean? Dog pose again. Just keep doing it. Do your own pose. Take care of your own self. Me, myself, and I've got nothing to lose, nothing to prove. Just breathe. Good. And then release. And so I've always, you hear these lines in your yoga career and you think, yeah, I kind of get that. But there's a real simple people that are struggling. If you're struggling with being kind of down and having a hard life or going through a little situation or whatever, look up more. Seems kind of funny, right? So you need to go down, you need to go down towards the earth to be supported enough. But then there's a certain point where unless you let in more sunlight literally into your eyes more by looking up, right? Something changes. But this time, don't just look up with your eyes. So you can look up with your eyes and go, oh yeah, that's kind of like not pay attention to your neck and look up and take in. It's really crisp day today in Minnesota. It was like 47 last night, right? But it's a beautiful fall day. So I'm gonna let in more, right? And then they say things like, um, back bends help depression. Okay, right? So I know if I let in more light, if I let in more air by looking up, right? I know if I only look up, I'm going to get ungrounded, right? So I got to have the earth here too, right? And so now I'm going to start to make sure that the sunlight is going into the center of my chest, which means I need to start back bending, right? I need not to just look up with my gaze. And so I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to kind of come out of, I'm going to do a version of, let's say, chaturanga dandasana without really doing chaturanga dandasana. I'm forward on the table. I'm leaning on it. My head's in a straight line with my spine, kind of, right? And I'm thinking about doing like a push-up, and I'm lengthening my spine. And then I'm going to transform it from my spine, drop my shoulder blades, feel my sitting bones, feel the inner quarter of my legs. And I'm going to start to open my eyes as I lift my chest towards the sky. Now, once I'm here, I'm going to spread between my shoulder blades, drop my shoulder blades, feel my sitting bones, go down to the inner edge of my heels, right? And start letting in the sunlight or whatever light there is. Well, that's just getting bright. Funny that the sun's coming right out into my eyes right now, right? So I actually have to close my eyes. I'll burn my retinas, right? Too much, right? So I'm going to just be here for a while and breathe. And now, when I think I've got my body in alignment, I still have to surrender at the very center of my chest and have the strength to let the sunlight get all the way into where I think it's unreachable. It's reachable. It helps if I let the upper thoracic migrate forward and I feel the sunlight come in to the center of my chest. Good, and then release. Huh. Going to start moving around a little bit because that was actually relatively intense. And I got big sunspots in my eyes because the sun came right into my eyeballs, right? So I got to be a little bit careful here. Right, so I'm going to go back and forth and maybe do a little bit more rhythm again because me, myself, I've got nothing to prove, right? Right, so I'm doing that again. Now I'm just going to start moving like I'm doing more of a flow practice. I keep thinking about Angelique telling me I'm always just teaching flow practices anyway. She thinks I throw vinyasa under the bus because I'm just a meanie, right? And she says, "You're teaching flow practices all the time." Okay, maybe I am. Hey, by the way, God dang it, I meant to read the new submissions from Substack, from Mind Body Story, or think about them, but you should read them, right? They just came out a little bit ago. And plus, we need more submissions. Speaking of letting your story hit sunshine, right? So I'm going back and forth and thinking, I think I kind of like this. When you take the arm up, is it an equal measure going down through your legs? And to do that, how do you make sure your heart is in the center? The center of your chest is part of the movement. What are the instructions? Right? Back and forth with gravity shifts. Ooh, now I'm going to get more whimsical with my gravity shifts. Oh, maybe I'll go farther back this time and just go like this. So I leap by taking my shoulder blade in and down. Center of my chest is popping out like a bloom. The heart is a bloom, right? Now I'm going to go the other way and make sure I get my heart to jump out like a balloon. Ooh, not as good this way. Holy cow. Not as effective. So I got to do more work on this side. I can feel the stony ground on this side. It's hard to see the bloom. Means I better do it again. I'm gonna go back to center. I know it has to do with flexibility, right? So I'm gonna go to where I can feel the bloom easier. I'm going to this side going, oh, there's the bloom. I get that. Now I'm gonna go the other way and know that I'm going to get more stone here. Except, am I? Hmm. Well, I like that. Now I got to breathe here. Let the air do its work. Hmm. Good. And then release. Right. I think I have to take a few skips here. It's harder to go backwards with your spine, by the way. I can hit the back of my chair, but I can't quite get the same, right, as I can get it this way. So those of you that can walk around and stuff, I think you should like tie your legs and feet together and then hop. And you'll get a little feel of what I'm talking about. You don't get to, right? And then take your arms behind you and shoulder stand. But instead of like just dragging your shoulder back and down, like as you move the shoulder blades in and down, and don't just lift your chest, let it come through the stony ground and then drop your chin. And take a few breaths. Good. And then release. I need a little bit of spritzer. So I'm lifting up a little bit. I need to bubble this up a little bit before I go into Shavasana. Hmm. I'm going to place my hands on my legs or on the table. I'm going to find my sitting bones and my feet. And I'm going to let the sequence and the carryover lift my chest. Or we do Shavasana, lips together, teeth slightly apart. And let the center of your chest help your mind be, your mouth be expansive. Lighter. Good. And then release. Find a way to be even more supported by your chair. Now, especially if possible, after this class, like I'm leaning back and I'm lucky in some ways because the back of my chair hits right into the bottom edge of my back of my sternum, so I can really get reference to let the center of my chest be supported. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. But make sure you really try to, like it's on airs, like at the center of your chest, receiving the sensation of support. Temples, jaw, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles. even your finger joints, your toes. Let them go. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Think your body. Think all the places you can't touch. You don't get to control. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, let the light in. Open your eyes. Close them if you want. Reopen from your spine to your eyeballs, not just your eyeballs. Like I sometimes do practice opening my eyes from the center of my chest, not just open them like from my eyeballs, but like get grounded enough to go, okay. With my eyes goes my heart, right? The other thing I wanted to say that I think is I don't really, I don't think the heart or the center of the sternum or whatever puts conditions on its expression. I think your mind does, right? That actually the mind's kind of overwhelmed by the capacity of the heart, of this part of the spine. And this part of the spine has love and loss. It's got the whole thing. It's this part that kind of whack-a-mo's about it, right? So, except when this gets hurt hard enough, the mind gets all freaked out. So it's true. All right, hands together. It's all of the above. 100,000 ways to speak and to sleep. Namaste. Spirit in me bows to spirit in you.